What is going on, guys? This is your old pal CHH. Welcome back, my children of the night. That sounded a lot cooler in my head, but it probably didn't come out that well. And if you're new, the reason I said that is because I did a cover of that song for Maniac Cop 2. Check me out on Spotify, artist name CHH. You'll find Children of the Night on there. I didn't do it anywhere as good as Buddy Miles did, but it's okay. You know, I gave it hell, as they say. So, guys, this is going to be like a mini kind of podcast episode as well as showing you these. This is my story of FOMO. I think we all have had an experience with FOMO. God knows this is my FOMO story. And the AC is kicking on. So my FOMO story, like I said, is all about vinegar syndrome. And I've been pretty good about FOMO. Like, I don't have a lot of experiences with FOMO getting the best of me. For instance, one of my biggest things with FOMO that I've been really good about, and this is a no judgment type video, and when I talk about the stuff that I don't fall victim to, that doesn't mean I'm making fun of people by any stretch, because this is me trying to be vulnerable and let you guys know what happened. But for instance, one of the big things people have is Scream Factory collector's editions. If it had a slip, they have to have it with a slip. And I think people get caught up with that, whether it just be how long they collect or whatnot, or like they will go back and spend money to get releases with slips if it means that they have to pay more money. Like, I've been good about that. I categorize slip covers that I have on the shelves and then not have on the shelves with Scream Factory. But this is about Vinegar Syndrome and the VSU line. Now, I'll kind of go through this. I'll kind of go through this as I'm going through the title. So, Vinegar Syndrome launched what's called the VSU, and for some reason, I kept thinking it used to be Vinegar Syndrome University. I don't know why. For some reason, I would just call it that. That's obviously not what it is. But VSU was announced, and I was a casual, and I still really am a casual VSU, or Vinegar Syndrome collector. I was introduced to them by Mad Men and titles like that, and one of the big titles that really made me a customer was something Wind. Demon Wind was one. And I remember when I was like, okay, I'm a Vinegar Syndrome fan, was when they put out Dolly Dearest. That was one of my favorite releases. Dolly Dearest is a doll that honestly freaked me out way more than Chucky. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, please look into Dolly Dearest, because that is a freaky looking doll. Not a great movie, but it's modest, right? And it's actually pretty scary. So I liked that. And one of the big titles that was like, okay, I'm aware of Vinegar Syndrome and I'm going to stay aware of them was a movie called A Fade to Black. It got a lot of notoriety. Obviously, it was a good movie, but like, it got a lot of notoriety heavy at the time when In Search of Darkness 1 came out. So I was just super excited to pick up that Blu-ray, kind of hoping that gets a 4K. If not, it's okay. There was a great release. They interviewed Irwin Yablans, who produced Halloween, who also produced Fade to Black. By that point, I was aware of Vinegar Syndrome and keeping up with what they were doing. So they announced this thing called the Vinegar Syndrome Ultimate release series, and they started it out with Beastmaster, okay? So Beastmaster is number 1, VSU 1. And when I remember when I got this, I was like, this is gorgeous. I got it, and I was like, oh, there's a little tab. You open this up, it's like a piece of treasure. And this was a Don Coscarelli film. You open it up, and you've got this gorgeous slipcover for your movie and a booklet. And, we'll look at these briefly because, these are really cool, and I need an excuse to kind of show these off in a video since I have them all now. I actually have this on backwards. But look at that classic art for Beastmaster. Fun movie. I wouldn't say it's Don's best movie, but it's really fun. It's really, really, really fun. I think Phantasm's his best movie. But they spared no expense with these. I mean, just look at the box for this. This is gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. And I thought, man, this is incredible. So, yeah. Just a beautiful release, man. And so I remember getting this, and I was like, I'm definitely going to keep up with VSU. But I got some news that I wasn't too keen about. I don't remember if it was something that Vinegar Syndrome said themselves or not, but lo and behold, I think by the second title, which was a movie called Six String Samurai, I got the news about that, and I was like, well, that's not cool. I thought they were going to do like a Texas Chainsaw movie. Are they going to do like a cool horror title and do a VSU of this? What the hell is Six String Samurai? And truth be told, I still haven't seen it yet. Just got it. And I have a question for you, the audience, for the people that have seen it about this. So the thing with Six String Samurai, I got the announcement of that, and I was just like, I don't know, man. I don't know. And I didn't grab that. But here it is now. So the reason I didn't grab this was like I was already expecting them to do something else, something I say better, but a more well-known, something that was going to be more in line with what I was looking for. The irony is this is a gorgeous VSU. Look at the art on this. Sensational. Now I'm excited to watch Six String Samurai. This is from the late 90s, interestingly enough. And here's the thing why I'm asking. Maybe this movie's not too great. I'm not sure. This VSU is number 2, right? Let me make sure. Yeah, this is VSU number 2 with Six String Samurai. And it was still available a few weeks ago when I got it. When I was like, okay, I am going to finish the series. Like I said, it's gorgeous. The inside art on this is sensational. So maybe Six String Samurai is either not that good or just nobody's heard of it, that sort of thing. I'm not exactly sure. But I passed on this one, and I'll explain when I got these. Well, I should probably put the slipcover back on the 4K. I have a bad habit of doing that whenever I open these up. The most interesting reason why I passed on one we'll get to shortly. So after that, I had gotten Beastmaster, and I was like, Six String Samurai, I'm not that interested in that right now. And then they announced this, Cloak and Dagger. Hadn't heard of this movie. I have since watched this movie. I think it's a charming, great little 80s flick. I enjoyed it a lot. But when they announced this, I didn't know anything about it. I wasn't aware of it. Funnily enough, I brought this up to my dad, and my dad was like, I saw that in the theater. Yeah, I love this movie. Whether he really did or not, I don't know, but I know he described it to me. We were talking about he loved it. I'm assuming this went to the theater, but I passed on this. I was like, I want them to do something horror-related because you got to understand, too, at the time, I was only predominantly buying a lot of horror physical media. This was before I was telling myself, Christian, you know, why are you passing up? Like, some stuff I wouldn't pass up, like the Rambo 4K Steelbook box set. But no chance in hell I didn't pass that up because I love all those movies, but I don't know. I just figured, well, I'm only doing horror related videos on my YouTube channel at the time. So why would I spend money on some of this stuff, blah, 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 even though I knew I would probably have a great time enjoying collecting and loving these movies. So I just kind of blocked it out by this point. And because I passed up on the previous one, I was like, I'll pass Cloak and Dagger. But this is my favorite packaged one. I can't even lie to you. So here's Cloak and Dagger's artwork on the front, and here's the back side. I love the spine on this one, and why this is so cool. Look at this. They made it like a video game. So when you open it up, you got this incredible 8-bit art on here. Your mission, recover the stolen plans from the evil Dr. Boom and destroy his underground bomb factory. Game over. Really cool. With all of these, you get really cool booklets going over the making of the movie and the release. But this is what killed me in a good way. It looks like an Atari 2600 game on the slipcover. Incredible. And it's got an old price sticker, like an old vintage style price sticker. One thing I will say, nobody touches Vinegar Syndrome when it comes to packaging. This is my favorite packaged one, hands down. I love the Cloak and Dagger release. With a burning passion. Love it. So Cloak and Dagger, I passed on to, and I'll explain how I got these after I kind of go through everything. So by that point, the VSU line kind of left my mind. But when they would get announced, this was around the time I started watching people do these Vinegar Syndrome announcement shows, because it was really fun. Here's the one thing I'll say. Is Vinegar Syndrome my favorite boutique company? I don't think so. I think it's Arrow, pound for pound. I think it's Arrow. Right? Maybe Scream Factory, but I think Arrow, right? I just think they're the best at what they do. But when it comes to marketing, when it comes to that sort of thing, Vinegar Syndrome nobody touches them. Just hands down, nobody touches them. And I think it's a testament to how successful they are with a lot of the titles they have. And that's not meant as a slight. What I mean by that is they will put out stuff that is very cheap releases, but they make everything so fun. They They roll out the red carpet for everything. Everything from Vinegar Syndrome basically has the red carpet rolled out on it in some form or fashion. But because by that point I had only gotten one, I was just like, I don't know. And again, by this point, there was a hope of something horror-related coming out. Now, the one that was announced at this point was a movie I actually like a lot. The next one was Roadhouse. Now, what was really cool was when this was announced, people were kind of shocked, including myself. Now, two reasons why I didn't grab this. Number one, I had just gotten, and I mean just gotten, the Scream Factory Roadhouse Blu-ray. And when I got it, I picked it up at a Walmart. This was a movie I had streamed maybe 3 months before I got the Blu-ray. I hadn't seen Roadhouse in years and years and years, and it somehow got brought up. Me and my wife were talking about Patrick Swayze. I personally think Patrick Swayze is top 10 of the greatest movie stars of all time. He commands the screen. If you watch a movie like The Outsiders, even though he's far from the star of the film, when you see Patrick with that cast of Emilio Estevez, Tom Cruise, all those guys, Patrick is like, to me, he is just like a star. So I love Patrick Swayze, always have. I wish he was still with us making classic films. I had just got the Blu-ray, and then they announced this, and I kind of passed on it. You know, here's the front, here's the back. And I just remember people were just floored, including myself. I was like, wow. But I was just like, oh, I just got the Blu-ray. To give you a little bit of a backstory about how successful this release was, here's the slipcover. And the slipcover is nice. Like, Patrick's embossed on the slipcover, which is just fantastic. And, of course, you can flip it to have the original art on there. This release was so successful. And of course your booklet, and on the inside you get the double deuce artwork. Just no expense spared on these. That's what makes these releases so incredible. Now, if I could stop rambling, what made this so surprising and how successful it was is my buddy Brandon Tomato Vision. He's a physical media guy, sure, but he is kind of like a grumpy old man, so he doesn't buy a lot of stuff anymore. It's always like whatever. He saw this and he was like, boom, I have to have that. That's how big of a deal. So that's an indicator for how this stuff was selling. This one, I think, sold out. I think this might have been, or at least at this time, the fastest selling out VSU. I don't know if it's the fastest of all time. I think there may be another one that was, if it wasn't this, but I think this was it. So I kind of was bummed out that I had just bought the Blu-ray of that. And I by the time I decided, I think I probably want that. It might have been a month later. I was like, it's Roadhouse. It's Roadhouse. And I think it was already sold out. And by that point, I was like, well, I'm not gonna buy the regular 4K. I would have wanted the Lifetime Achievement Award release, which is basically what I look at some of these as, you know. So there it was. Again, you know, they announced another one down the road. And it was a movie I had never seen. And the next one was, let me make sure, the next one was Sidekicks, Chuck Norris and Jonathan Brandis. I liked this movie. It wasn't great. I think this was one of those movies where, and again, I just saw it for the first time myself. I think this is one of those movies where it really helps if you grew up with it. There's this connective tissue that you might have. I'm not saying I didn't like it. I love Chuck Norris, as well as Jonathan Brandis. It's almost kind of sad watching anything with Jonathan Brandis in it, because I think he had a grip on the youth for a while, right? Because he was just this kid actor that was relatable. You believed him. He was a great actor. And he was even great in funny, quirky movies like Ladybug, for instance. And, of course, everybody loves him from It as Bill. I think Bill was the best of the bunch, especially for the kids. The adults, a different story. I like Tim Reed with the adults. But with the kids, I think Brandis was just the absolute best as Bill. But, yeah, by the time this was announced again, I was just like, I thought they were going to do a cool horror title. And I don't think I was wised up yet to the fact that, you know, this isn't a horror line. These are specifically not horror titles. So I passed on this one. But luckily, they still had some left. So I was able to order this about 3 or 4 weeks ago. Okay, so here's the deal. The next one, I think, if Roadhouse wasn't the biggest seller, okay, if that was not the biggest seller, it was definitely Showgirls. And again, I'm going to explain to you how I got these, how I didn't spend a fortune to get some of these like Showgirls, and tell you what I did. All right, so Showgirls, here's the story with Showgirls. During this time, I remember talking to a couple of people. Hey, man, have you heard the rumors right now? And everybody's like, what? Or not everybody's like, what? But we were talking, and people were like, it was all over YouTube, not YouTube, Instagram and stuff. All my friends, we were all talking. Dude, they're releasing Killer Clowns tonight from Vinegar Syndrome. That's what the announcement's going to be. Like I said, they're very good at promoting and saying, hey, huge announcements tonight. Everybody thought it was going to be Killer Clowns. I think there was some hint that was dropped, and obviously it wasn't Killer Clowns, but people were led to believe this. A lot of people. So I'm sitting in bed. It's late at night because these are midnight drops, which thankfully for me is 11, so it's not too late when the stuff gets announced. There it is. Everybody's talking about it. I think I was watching the Dead Pit show, and all of a sudden, here come the announcements, and boom, it's Showgirls. Now, mind you, I love Elizabeth Berkley. I mean, she was always my favorite in Saved by the Bell. Kelly Kapowski, smoking, beautiful girl, especially when I was a kid watching Saved by the Bell. But I was always a fan of Mama, as Slater would always call her, Elizabeth Berkley. I thought she was so pretty. Still is till this very day. The wind was taken out of my sails. Completely taken out of my sails. So I was just like, are you kidding me? Showgirls? I thought we were getting Killer Clowns. So I go to bed, bitter, annoyed. 3 days later, I say to myself, that's a Paul Verhoeven film, Christian. You know, and it's one of those movies that was supposed to be like this thing, right? It was like hyped, came out, people were making fun of it. It was a bad movie. And it's a cult hit for a different reason now. But it's supposed to be like this, you know. And Kyle MacLachlan's talked about it. He's like, we really thought we were making this thing that was like gonna set the bar for things going forward, and it turned into a funny thing for people. But hey, it's a cult hit, and I'm glad that people remember it and they're still talking about it. All that sort of thing. But what I'm getting at is 4 or 5 days later, I was saying to myself, Christian, that's a Paul Verhoeven film. You love Elizabeth Berkley. You've seen Showgirls as a kid. We used to go to one of my friends' houses who had the VHS of it, and we would watch it. And, you know, all that sort of thing. Just get it. You know, Christian, you've passed up a lot of those VSUs. Don't pass up on Showgirls. Of course, this sucker sold like hotcakes. So, missed out on that. I've got the replacement disc. I got that. Here is the beautiful slipcover with Elizabeth on it, front and back. Smoking hot. And this image is so nostalgic for me. I used to remember seeing, there was somebody from my childhood that I just remember. I don't know where it was, but there was this poster of Showgirls hanging up. So I used to see it all the time, but for the life of me, I can't remember where it was. It might have been my uncle's house. I cannot remember. But I just remember this image is burned in my brain from when I was a kid. So here's Showgirls. Again, gorgeous inside art. Love it. Just love it. So I got that. I'm assuming there was some kind of issue with audio. I forget exactly, but yeah, I do have the discs with mine, so we're good on that front. If anybody was going to ask, like, hey, you know, you got that, but did you get the replacement discs? So at that point, I was saying to myself, Christian, you have screwed yourself on so many VSUs. You passed up on them. You know that there are these really cool releases. Just kind of pick back up with things. So I did. So by the time Daryl got announced, I did pick up Daryl. This was a really fun, quirky 90s science fiction movie. And I really liked the bubbly art on this. So Daryl was fun. Not my favorite movie, obviously, out of the VSU catalog, but fun. And I had some friends that were like, oh, I saw this back in the day. It's really funny. Good movie. Data analyzing robot youth lifeform Daryl. The irony of that, Daryl's such like a country name to me. Because I live in the country, and I know a lot of guys around here named Daryl. So the fact that it's Daryl, but it's something robotic, there's some irony to that with me. But yeah, so Daryl I picked up, no problem. Daryl I got, and I was happy, and I was like, man, these really are gorgeous. I'm an idiot for passing up those. So by the time that happened, I got Southern Comfort. And this movie was incredible. I loved it. Interestingly enough, like this movie was pretty intense. I wouldn't call it a horror movie, really, but it's on Shudder, which I thought was interesting. But I thought Southern Comfort was a great release. So, yeah, Southern Comfort, man. Awesome, awesome release. Great art on that. You know, you got your booklet. Like I say, I would compare this to a movie like Deliverance, too. You see, this is Not Since Deliverance. Intense. So look at that. Gorgeous, gorgeous artwork on there. And it's home base with Louisiana. So I have a lot of love for this movie. I really enjoyed it. Kind of a classic. I would call Southern Comfort a classic. So I got my hands on Daryl and Southern Comfort, and I got a brand new movie shelf in my living room. Me and my wife were redoing. When I was redoing this room, I was telling Sydney, I was like, do you want me to put my kind of non-horror movies in here? And she goes, no, let's keep them displayed in the living room because you're going to watch a lot of movies in there anyway. So let's get a nice shelf, and we'll put your nice 4K release stuff on there. I was like, oh, it's perfect. I could put some of my nice VSUs and, you know, Arrow stuff like Conan on there. I'm putting those VSUs I have on the shelf, and it's burning a hole in my ass. I was like, Christian, you idiot. Why did you not get those other ones in the past? Sometimes I would message Brandon and be like, what it's going to take for you to give me that Roadhouse. He's like, not happening. So my FOMO was kicking in big time. So the first thing I did was, okay, let's go to Vinegar Syndrome's website and see which ones I can get. And so luckily, Sidekicks was still available. I don't know if it still is. I think it was down to like 600. And Last Samurai was still available. Again, I have not seen this yet, but my gut tells me maybe this wasn't a fan favorite or just wasn't a big enough movie that people remember that it sold well enough. So those still had, these were still in stock a month ago. And I was telling myself, I was like, Christian, that's of course I have Navy SEALs pre-ordered at this time, which it was funny. Some people were making fun of it. Other people were like, I love that movie. I listened to the soundtrack to Navy SEALs, guys, and it blew me away. The soundtrack is incredible. So at least there's that so far. I haven't seen the movie yet. I will when I get the VSU, but the soundtrack's incredible. Mr. Big, 2 songs from Mr. Big on there. There's a song, Tempt Me, that's really good. There's a ballad by Planet 3. It's just a great soundtrack. I really like it. Oh, Bon Jovi's Boys Are Back in Town cover, which is a great cover. Anyway, and I'm saying to myself, Christian, why did you do this? Why did you do that? You should have just done it, blah, blah, blah. They're spaced out enough to where it's like, you know, there's really no excuse for you to not be, it's not like they're dropping them once a month because they're not cheap releases. I said, Christian, use your resources. Luckily, I've been on YouTube a long time, and I've got people that follow me. So I put out the feelers on Instagram. I said, look, I'm trying to finish off the VSUs. I really want to make this a reality, guys. If you've got this one, talk to me. We could talk about prices, etc., etc. So I was able to do a few trades. I did a trade for Roadhouse. And funnily enough, even though this isn't a VSU, this is an oddity, VSP, New York Ninja. But people kind of treat it like a VSU because it's packaged exactly the same. So I don't know if there's ever going to be any more VSPs, but there was a friend of mine who, and I didn't ask them to use their names on video, so I'm not going to say their names on here, but a friend of mine reached out to me and said, hey, I have Roadhouse and I have New York Ninja. I'm looking to trade. Let's talk. So I was able to do a trade for these. I lucked out, and I have collected Jason busts for a long time, and I have some just literally sitting in my closet because I have a gigantic Jason Takes Manhattan. So I was like, okay, look, the thing's sitting in the closet. I'll gladly trade that for some VSUs because it's just sitting in the closet, you know. And I still have some Jason Takes Manhattans sitting in the closet. So I did a trade. Luckily, I didn't have to pay anything besides just shipping something. So I traded for these. And the interesting thing is what these are selling for on eBay is ridiculous. So I traded for that and New York Ninja. So that worked out really cool. Another friend of mine was looking for a second sight release that I had picked up, and we were able to do a clean sweep for Cloak and Dagger and this second sight release that I had. So cool on that front. So far, I'm only just paying to ship some stuff to these people to trade. And for you people who you know who you are, thank you very much. But one was still eluding me, and that was Showgirls. And so I was looking on eBay because I was kind of just like, just get it done, Christian. You know, if you want to get Showgirls, make it happen. So I'm going on eBay, and truthfully, it's just expensive. And I mean expensive to get Showgirls. A couple $100 is what the listing prices are. Maybe I could do a bid and get lucky and maybe spend 120, but I was just like, oh my God. And again, I didn't ask these people to use their names, so I won't use their names, but somebody on Instagram that I follow, and we follow each other, and that sort of thing, reached out to me and said, hey, look, man, I bought it, not really watching it. Let me sleep on it. I think I can just let this go, and I'll give you a really good price, man. I'm assuming he's a fan of the YouTube channel. And then the next day, he hit me up. He was like, let's do it. I got this for $60. And I was more than happy to take it at this price. I don't think that's a whole hell of a lot more than what it was retail. So I was able to get Showgirls. And that is the tale of my Vinegar Syndrome FOMO story. So there's something about, like, I think it's a few things why I really wanted to finish these off. Number one, because they are gorgeous releases. I mean, there's just such this prestige to them that really just, there's a light shined on them, and they're so cool releases. They pop on the shelf, and you kind of really don't know where they're going. Like Navy SEALs was apparently a big deal. I did some research on the movie. It was supposed to be a big movie. It had like a $20-something million budget. Michael Biehn, Charlie Sheen's in it. But it just kind of faded away. I think it's probably like an answer to like a Top Gun movie, if I had to guess. But it didn't resonate. But it's kind of like this forgotten movie. So like, but that's a big title. We're talking Charlie Sheen. So like, that's just so cool to have. And like Roadhouse, Showgirls, Southern Comfort. And the other thing, the big thing is there isn't that much out yet. So there's, excluding New York Ninja, because that is not a VSU. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's been 8 of them. So it seemed attainable to me. So that's why I was just like, just go for it, Christian, make it happen. So that's where I am, guys. I am happy to have finished or been up to date with the VSUs, and that's my story with FOMO. And I'm very fortunate, I'm very grateful, and I'm very lucky to have this platform and to be on YouTube enough to kind of get my name out to people to where they kind of keep up with what I'm doing, and have really generous, kind friends and people that have been able to hook me up with either trades or a really ridiculously fair, just a kind, sweet price for that Showgirl. So I'm very happy. I'm very fortunate. And that's my story, guys. So yes, it happens to me. FOMO got the best of me. What can I say? And I'd love to know what your story with FOMO is, if you've had one, and how sometimes it can you got to just get it done, or else it just, like, you can't let it go. And I couldn't let the Vinegar Syndrome VSU line go in my head. I was just like, stay up to date. And now I'm going to stay up to date with it, of course. So that's it, guys. Hopefully this wasn't a just ridiculously boring video. Maybe you guys got some enjoyment out of it. I just wanted to talk about it because I've never talked about FOMO and its effect on me before. So that's my story, guys. Let me know if you're a fan of the VSU lines or what your story with FOMO is. This is your old pal CHH. God bless you guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Huge giant thank you to all of my Patreon supporters. Without you guys, this would not be possible. To get behind the scenes photos, videos, music, private live streams, and much more, you can subscribe to my Patreon for as little as $1 a month. Thank you to my patrons.